Life in New York City was always fast, loud, and demanding. For Rachel Adams, a 32-year-old marketing consultant, the city often felt like a race she never signed up for. She lived in Brooklyn, not far from her family, and though her career demanded most of her time, she still tried to keep close connections with the people who had shaped her life. One of those people was her mother's closest friend, Linda Walker. Linda had been part of Rachel's life since childhood. She was her mother's college roommate, later their neighbor, and eventually someone Rachel had grown to consider almost like an aunt. Though Linda wasn't related by blood, she had been there through every milestone: birthday parties, school plays, graduations. Now at 48, Linda lived alone in a quiet house on the edge of Queens. Her husband had passed away 5 years earlier, and though she smiled often, Rachel sometimes noticed the loneliness in her eyes. Linda's daughter Claire had moved to California for work, so most days Linda spent her time gardening, volunteering at the library, or quietly reading at home. One Saturday, Rachel's mother had to travel out of town for a reunion, and she called Rachel. "Sweetheart," her mother said over the phone, "Linda isn't feeling well lately. Could you check on her while I'm away? She's been spending too much time alone in that big house." Rachel didn't hesitate. "Of course, Mom. I'll go see her." That afternoon, Rachel drove to Queens. The neighborhood was peaceful, with tree-lined streets and small, tidy houses. When she reached Linda's home, she noticed how quiet it seemed. She knocked gently, and after a few moments, Linda opened the door with a surprised smile. "Rachel, what a wonderful surprise. Come in," Linda said warmly. The house smelled faintly of lavender and freshly baked bread. Rachel stepped inside and immediately felt the familiar comfort of Linda's home. They sat in the living room, and Rachel noticed books stacked on the coffee table, a knitting basket by the chair, and family photos neatly arranged on the wall. "How are you, Linda?" Rachel asked gently. Linda sighed with a small smile. "I'm all right. The days feel long sometimes when you're by yourself." Rachel nodded. She knew Linda didn't often admit her feelings, but living alone had become harder since her husband passed away. The silence of the house weighed heavily on her, even if she tried to fill it with hobbies. "Mom asked me to check on you while she's away," Rachel said kindly. Linda chuckled softly. "Your mother always worries too much. But I appreciate it." They spent the afternoon talking about old times. Linda told Rachel stories about her mother from their college days, how she used to stay up all night studying, how they once got lost on a road trip, and how they laughed until their stomachs hurt. Rachel loved hearing these stories because they made her feel closer to her mom's past, and Linda's laughter was infectious. Later, Linda invited Rachel to stay for dinner. They cooked together in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and sharing easy conversation. For Rachel, it felt like a piece of home, a reminder of the warmth she often missed in the chaos of city life. As evening settled, the rain began to pour outside. The sound of raindrops against the windows made the house feel even cozier. Rachel noticed Linda staring out the window for a long moment. "What are you thinking about?" Rachel asked softly. Linda turned to her with a small smile. "Just remembering when the house was full of noise. My husband working in the garage, my daughter running around with her friends. Feels too quiet now. Sometimes I wonder if I've grown too used to being alone." Rachel reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "You're not alone, Linda. You still have us. You have Mom, me, and so many people who care about you." Linda's eyes glistened, but she smiled. "You always know the right thing to say." They spent the rest of the evening playing an old board game Linda kept in the cupboard, laughing like children. The loneliness that had hung in the air earlier seemed to lift, replaced by warmth and connection. When Rachel finally left that night, Linda walked her to the door. The rain had stopped, and the night air was cool. "Thank you for coming today," Linda said quietly. "It means more than you know." Rachel smiled. "Anytime, Linda. You don't have to face the silence alone." From that day forward, Rachel made it a routine to visit Linda more often. Sometimes they cooked together, sometimes they just sat and read in the living room, and sometimes they took walks through the neighborhood park. Slowly, Linda's loneliness eased. And Rachel discovered that spending time with her mother's friend also gave her a sense of peace she didn't know she needed. Months later, when Rachel's mother returned from her reunion, Linda told her with a bright smile, "Your daughter saved me from drowning in silence." And Rachel's mother replied, "That's what family is for, even if it isn't by blood." 6 months later, Linda joined a community group that organized events for people who lived alone. With Rachel's encouragement, she made new friends and even began leading a weekly book club. She still missed her late husband, but she no longer felt as if the walls of her home were closing in. Rachel, on the other hand, realized that sometimes the smallest gestures, visiting someone, sharing a meal, listening to their stories, could change a life. And in helping Linda, she found herself growing too. "My mother's friend was alone at home," Rachel would later tell people. "But she taught me that being there for someone, even in the simplest way, can bring back light into their life." And in a city as busy and demanding as New York, that was a lesson Rachel promised never to forget.